Welcome everybody to Sustainable River Basin Management Module 5 Part 1. First let's look at what we have been doing. We have finished Module 1, 2, 3 and 4 and we're now moving into the last module on how to evaluate sustainability in river basin management. Now I want to cover the following subjects. We will be talking about pillars of sustainability in this module, about sustainability assessments, about multi-criteria decision support, about systems thinking, and about sustainable development goals and water agenda. Let's first look into the classical water resources management. We usually departed from a water resource, of some water body, a river, a lake, some groundwater reservoir, and conduct a resources availability or resources use analysis and allocation, and we deliver a service to the users. And the overall goal of this is to achieve prosperity, to achieve well-being and socioeconomic development. Now, in between we have the various sectors. We have the health, we have water quality, water supply, floods and droughts, disasters, we have the energy sector, we have agriculture, we have various industries, we have pollution prevention, we have coastal management, we have ecosystems management. Those are dealing all or requiring a resource development, the resources management, monitoring and evaluation. We have discussed some of this during the course. And then we are having various objectives to achieve. One of this is social development. The other major objective is economic development, and we have environmental protection coming in as well. And this has been roofed by the so-called water governance. This is our umbrella, which should bring into place water-related policies and revisions. Now, those different actors are linked to each other by the objectives that I just mentioned, and all of this requires an institutional framework. It requires policies as a society to function. And then we have various management institutions that help us achieve those sectors, targeting specific water activities and specific water users. All of those may be coordinated or they may act individually, independent from each other, all of them using one and the same pool of resources. And then we expect, and in many cases this is also happening, a feedback taking place between these various levels, sector levels, the local level from the resource location to the governance level. So this is our classical model, the resource, the major objective, the prosperity, and resting on these development-oriented objectives. Now, there's a slight change now that we bring into this picture when we actually want to achieve sustainable water resources management. And I call those the pillars of sustainable water resource management. First of all, we want to achieve a balance between two aspects, water for livelihoods and water as a resource as such. This is a slightly different perspective to the prosperity approach. So we want to make sure that we include and provide space for livelihoods in general without the larger goal of becoming better, faster, accelerate in all of our dimensions based on our current growth model. So it's a balanced approach that we want to achieve here. And then we have those 3 pillars. The economic efficiency is one, equity is the second, and environmental sustainability is the third. All of them contributing and should contribute in a balanced, equally balanced manner to our major objective here in our green box. And then we have various techniques, methods at hand. We have management instruments. We can conduct assessments. We have allocation instruments in place, applying to all of these 3 pillars. And we require an enabling environment for all of these to function. That should be created through policies, through legislation. And we require an institutional framework. We need a link, an established and working link between the central government, national level, the regional level, the local level, and we need institutional frameworks for the entire river basin, and we need frameworks which allow the exchange and collaboration of public-private relationships. So all of those 3 boxes that we have here are equally relevant for each of these pillars above here. Now let's briefly talk about the equity and equality issue. What we mean by equality is that we mean a state or quality of being equal in terms of quantity or degree in value, rank or ability. And this means equal, as the term says, equal in both sides. If we want to distribute water equally, means that all of us get the same share, same amount of water, and the same quality at the same time, under the same financial conditions, for instance. That would be equal. And as we know, that is not possible because simply we don't have the water resources available to do so. And on the other hand, there's also no need to achieve equality in this because individuals may not need the water equally, equal amounts at equal times, under equal conditions, and so on. So that introduces a new concept, which is equity, and this is the quality of being fair or impartial. It also stands for fairness, or what is perceived as fairness, impartiality, or providing justice, giving justice, but it also stands for a kind of ownership to share something in the future. And this is what also works in the water resources management, to share benefits and to look for equity, to look for fairness or justice in the sense of providing access at the time in the quantities, amounts that are required or useful at a certain time. For instance, if a farmer requires water for irrigation, he requires that portion only during a certain period of the year, and he would perceive it as fair if someone else's uses, if that water would be available throughout the entire year, makes use of that amount of water to a better use during the times when he or she does not need that water for her farming activities. So also interesting, this ownership concept here, which allows somebody to take a decision also on what he or she needs right now, what is fair, or what is, do I need this in the future to be able to prepare to plan, to forecast economic investments, or in plan certain interventions for a certain period of the year and be sure that I have that resource, or I can, if I'm not able to make full use of it, I can share it and still in the future, once I shared it with somebody, still get my fair share back for my own applications. So this takes us to the terms equitable water sharing and also equitable benefit sharing, which are essential concepts to achieving sustainable water management. Now, remember the key points that have to be addressed in sustainable river basin management. I just want to list them here again. We talked about them, and we also talked about some of those in very detail. The good water governance, the securing of water for ecosystems, the securing of water for people, securing water for food, the gender disparities, risk management, the valuing of water, the issue of water for industries and cities in the form of bulk water and transboundary water. So those have to be addressed adequately to achieve sustainable river basin management. Now, how can we assess sustainability? Well, in the context of water management, there are around 3 different tools or concepts that I want to introduce to you. First is monitoring, and for that we can use indicators. This helps us to analyze performance. We can also detect changes, and we can use monitoring for compliance checks. This is what we have been talking about previously. And the second of these options of assessing sustainability is to evaluate different water management strategies. And this takes us to something that we call decision support systems. And the third is an approach that is called systems thinking. And this leads us to the restructuring of existing systems. Now, let's keep in mind that there is no blueprint, no final recipe available to assess sustainability, especially in river basin management. But I want to give you some examples. When we look into the monitoring and indicators, we are essentially looking into what is happening right now or what has been happening in the past, what has changed between today and the past. And we use that for corrections to administer our charges or our principles, for instance, polluters pay principles, to redirect resources and so on. This is what we use monitoring for. We are not substantially changing an established system to become maybe more sustainable. We can achieve resource efficiency and we can achieve compliance with the legal frameworks that were put into place. Now, the second here on the decision support systems, this takes us already to a strategic level where we can work on and reshape our overall goals. We can re-establish or revise our major frameworks, our strategies through this decision support system. So this already helps us change and influence our system as such, our established water resources management system. And then the third one here takes us to the profound changes within our established water resources management system, which profoundly can take us to sustainable water resource management scheme or system where there is no such in place right now. So this can take us to major changes in the entire frame that we have been looking into before. Now let's start with the Sustainable Development Indicators first. And here's an example taken from the UN Commission on Sustainable Development quite some time ago, and only showing the water-related indicators. So we have here categories, and then it's divided into chapters, into driving forces, the state, and the suggested response here. And then we have here categories, the social, environmental, and for each of those we have different what I call chapter: protecting and promoting human health, protecting water quality and supply of fresh water, protection of oceans and any kinds of seas and coastal areas, promoting sustainable agriculture and rural development. And then the driving forces looking into what the systems loops are, which could be enforced and influenced to achieve a certain state, the percent of population with adequate excreta disposal facilities, sanitation facilities, access to safe drinking water, amount of groundwater reserves, and so on. So those would be the target goals that should be achieved by addressing these driving forces, the systems loops in this. Now, another system we have here from the European system of environmental pressure indices that was developed by the European Commission's Environmental Directorate, and they formed different categories: the resource depletion, dispersion of toxic substances, water pollution, urban environmental problems, marine environmental and coastal zones. And those are all issues when we look at this. And then we have indicators here, and those are components that can be measured, they can be collected in the form of data. There could be interviews, or there could be sensors installed to measure these parameters here. So we have sort of hard facts here on this side: non-treated urban wastewater, tourism intensity, nitrogen quantity, and so on, which indicate what the state here is. The question here is, what do we want to achieve? We usually want to achieve a positive outcome, a positive impact, whereas here we are actually monitoring towards a negative impact, a negative outcome. So certainly this is one approach of dealing with that, but it sort of drives us into another feedback loop of monitoring against a worse state instead of monitoring against a wanted better outcome. Now, another example that we can find is the so-called Blue Plan for Environment and Development, and this was developed by the Mediterranean Commission on Sustainable Development. Those are countries. That commission is composed of representatives of the Mediterranean countries, all of them sharing the Mediterranean Sea, and in that also sharing the problems of water pollution occurring in that sea and along the coastlines. And here we have again a division into chapter, the themes, and then a record number here, or ID, and then we have indicators here, and then a category, a class into which this has been simplify it and to visualize it. And then we have here our 3 dimensions of sustainability. We have our population, society, the social component. We have our economic activities and sustainability, and we have our environment here. And then the different topics or themes which appear to be very relevant for these Mediterranean countries. Health, public health, agriculture, mining industry perceived as very important, and freshwater and wastewater management. And we have a whole lot of indicators of parameters which can be measured and which can be recorded and shared between these the various countries of this Mediterranean Commission. What we can see here already is that in this specific case that we have many indicators, for example for economic activities. We have just one indicator for the social component, and we have quite a number of indicators for the environmental dimension, where then the question of how to represent those data in a common indicator, for instance, in a common index on sustainability, might be not so straightforward. Now, additionally, depending on the region, we have other chapters added to it. Again, the social component, the lens and area, as an additional issue that is relevant for some of the countries, as well as the sustainable development actors and policies perceived as very important. And then depending on the area, instead of mining and agriculture, as we have seen in the other case before, tourism is one of the major topics in this specific case, and for that a larger list of indicators were developed, as we have here a specific indicator on lakes and lake systems, which are very important again from a tourism perspective and have a major impact on lands and areas. And then we have a component on policies and strategies towards sustainable development. So this is an example of how different countries with their very own economies can come together and develop a joint assessment frame and plan towards environmental and protection and development altogether. Now, before we stop here, I want you to think about the following. Do those examples which I showed to you cover all the sustainability dimensions? What about our future generations, which is obviously part of the sustainability definition? What about the issue of climate proofing? Is climate change built in or not? And why not? What would you think? And I suggest also you to look up other examples which may maybe provide you inputs to these questions that I leave with you now. And with this, I want to close. See you next time for the next class.